I love grunts. I know that's not exactly a hot take. Everyone loves grunts, but I have to tell the world. They have some of the most interesting lore around their anatomy, their culture. They look absurd and by all counts should be hideous, but they aren't. They're adorable. You've probably noticed how many videos I have, mainly shorts on specific grunt characters. There's another one coming out this week, in fact. Our chitinous little B1 battle droids here are beloved by all, as far as I know.
Oh no! I already feel bad as it is shooting them little guys!
But something less known is that I have a smaller channel called Mark the Crawler, which is linked in the top right corner and the description. Hey people, Mark here, and welcome to this video about grunts. We may not be going into that much detail of the actual lore of the grunts in this video, but I'm not opposed to doing that in the future in depth. I wanted to talk about the narrative utilization of the Ungoi species, its positives, its shortcomings, and what I think 343 should use the Ungoi for, or rather, what I personally would use the Ungoi for, were I an author contracted by them, or a writer in their studio. If by the end of the video you find that you enjoyed what you saw, please subscribe. I usually make videos talking about specific ships within the Halo universe, but I would love to do more stuff like this in the future. Let me know if you'd like that, and yeah, enjoy. So to start this off, I'd like to say, with my college-level education on narrative writing and screenwriting, the grunts are a good species because they're so funny, they dance and they're cute, look at them go! But also for several simple reasons that compound to a perfect comic relief fodder villain. Let's talk about the first thing you ever notice in the grunts, their design. Someone totally uninitiated to the Halo franchise can tell, from Combat Evolved to Infinite, at first glance, how a grunt is most likely going to behave. Altogether unthreatening, short relative to the Spartans we play as, seemingly over-encumbered, carrying these weirdly shaped giant packs on their backs that are the size of their own torsos. When we as humans perceive certain traits, we look to human variations of those traits, or what we'd see in like the animal kingdom regularly. For a bipedal creature, what do you think of when you think a strong creature? You think of a gorilla, a chimpanzee, a kangaroo. Biceps, large but not flabby abdominals, maybe not necessarily definition, but the size of the muscles in the place of fat or lack of flesh. Much to the contrary, the Ungoi look like an Ark Survival Evolved created character. They have massive forearms, calves, and chests, but lack any thighs, have no definition in their deltoids, biceps, triceps, obliques, very much like me. Their posture is terrible, they do the opposite of standing up straight. They are the antithesis of what we look for in a physically strong individual. This sets the grunts up for the role they play in every iteration as punching bags, the cowardly, comically ineffete, pitiful little bottom caste. Grunts die in one shot, they are always the first to run, they almost never take initiative, and when they do, it's either to kill themselves, or it has little to no effect anyway. Ungoi usually carry the weakest weapons, and when they don't, the heavy weapons they carry are usually only to compensate for the fact that they themselves are of very little use on the battlefield, compared to the crafty, shifty Kigyar, the impressive, graceful Sangheili, the brutal, savage Jiralhane, the quick and highly mobile Yanmei, and the monstrous Letgolo. But what they do have, more than any other species, is the capacity to be sympathized with. When we as humans understand that a creature is small, weak, and unable to defend itself, a second understanding kicks in. Put as bluntly as possible, if someone is okay or enthusiastic about the idea of bullying, torturing, killing, or intentionally harming, for example, a kitten in any way, I am not sad if that person's life comes to an end. Generally speaking, we don't like to have individuals around who will disregard the bare minimum amount of respect for creatures or people who can't defend themselves. In turn, we develop attachments to characters and media that have these traits. We want the weak to succeed. We root for the underdog. The grunt, the Ungoi, is a perfect encapsulation of the underdog in their design and lore. The character and species archetype that they represent in Halo is that of the beat-down victim. Now, they and the rest of the aliens represent a little more than what they do on the surface, but my thoughts on that would be better served in a context of a greater discussion of what Halo's underlying subtext is. But the good. The Ungoi are respected as characters in the Halo novels. There have been multiple grunt protagonists over the years, despite the Sangheili dominating the alien representation both in games and in the expanded universe. Only now with the Banished are the brutes starting to get some of that attention, with a bit of the Kigyar sprinkled in. But as far back as Contact Harvest, characters like Dadab have been there to give us a bit of the Ungoi perspective. Dadab is a deacon, the only rank available to Ungoi that allows them a modicum of respect. And I do say modicum, because in his introductory chapter, a group of Kigyar are throwing melons at him. Stationed on the Minor Transgression, a Kigyar missionary vessel, he's constantly at odds with the majority of the ship's crew, serving under a cruel shipmistress whose deacons tend to meet unfortunate accidents after any perceived disloyalty. But Dadab isn't troubled by it. He's got lofty goals, and his dream is to be a spiritual leader for the Ungoi less fortunate than himself. He's fueled by the hope that he's found on his path to the great journey. However, the moment we're told this uplifting little fact about Dadab, we're given this lovely bit of literature. The pile of fibrous mucus in the cabin beyond was instantly recognizable. This was where the Kigyar had chosen to defecate. Gingerly, Dadab slid one of his flat four-toed feet through the sticky result of the Kigyar's fruit-fueled gorging until he struck something metallic. An Ungoy's story, whether it ends in a way they would hope or not, and it's almost always the latter, will be mired in humiliation and disrespect. There's no escaping that. He does have one reprieve, however. For the lowly Grunt, the ability to even breathe is made a laborious task. As the only species in the Covenant that can't breathe oxygen-rich air, they're forced to don heavy tanks and uncomfortable face masks. One could imagine the methane suite, the only room on the ship tailored to an Ungoy's physiology, and housing the food nipple, the only source of sustenance for them, would be the closest thing they have to a home, and their only haven from the other species in the hegemony that would do them harm. On top of that, within the methane suite is the Deacon's only friend, lighter than most. The Hiragak are a similarly tragic and misunderstood species in the universe. Their propensity for kindness sets them apart from the majority of the cruel, proud races of the Covenant, but makes them apt friends for the Ungoy. While the circumstances of Dadab's lot in life are completely alien to us, we can relate to their struggle as people who sometimes feel like the world is against us, like we're not even biologically fit to live in it. Like the moment we find hope in the darkness, we have to step through a pool of bird shit to get to our next objective. We see that Dadab amuses himself playing Scrub Grub, a game where you, throw rocks at bugs. He appreciates the little things, like the fact that his friend dumbs down the Hiragak language in order to better communicate with him. And like us, Dadab isn't perfect. He's cowardly and submissive to a fault. To survive, but cowardly nonetheless. He plays the aforementioned game, Scrub Grub, which entails killing creatures for fun, but when the Hiragak protests his actions in obvious condemnation of the game, he alters the rules to be more accommodating for his friend, after considering that lighter than some may feel a kind of kinship with the grubs, i.e., he's able to put himself in others' shoes, despite his entire life being generally unjust to him. He believes wholeheartedly in the Great Journey, more of a fault of the society in which he was born, but still, he never calls into question the lack of evidence for the Prophet's teachings, taking the Forerunner relics and ruins as evidence on their face. Instead, he leans into it more than most. You can't blame him or the rest of his people. People become more superstitious, more religious in times of crisis or strife, and the entire history of the Ungoy can be characterized as such. And it just so happens that the religion popularized by the Covenant has the end goal of complete galactic annihilation. When trapped in an escape pod with no life support, Dadab feels guilt when his Hiragak companion has to strain himself to produce methane for him. And just like the Grunts alive during the first Ungoy disobedience, Dadab was eventually pushed too far and lost too much. He fires an overcharge shot at Tartarus, well aware of the consequences, not that he thought it would work, but in the hope that a nearby human, Avery Johnson in fact, would finish the job. Now, Tartarus did not die there, in fact living for 25 more years to be killed by the Arbiter and Johnson, but the fact remains that when up against the wall, Dadab raged against his oppressors and very nearly won the day for the humans. Dadab is a very good example of the Ungoy spirit. He has hope for the future and learns from his mistakes. He's agile and clever and seeks companionship, and just like the rest of his people, once provoked, he will be merciless in their righteous vengeance. Whatever good it will do them. Now the not so good. The only issue with the Ungoy's utilization is that they are never, ever granted a win on screen. With the exception of the expanded universe, as I said earlier, Halo gives very little attention to the alien species they've given us. The Sangheili get more development than any other non-human species, and that makes sense. The mainline Halo games aren't structured for that particular kind of world building, and they shouldn't be. I think Halo is in dire need of some spin-offs, though. Once they get Halo Infinite under control, that is. With a universe as large as Halo, it's downright wasteful to just let it sit unused. While a lot of the proposed Halo spin-off games, like the survival horror marine game, the Contact Harvest game, those are all great ideas, I think it shouldn't be understated that the Covenant species, in the eyes of the casual player, have not been developed in any major way since Halo 2, with the exception of the brutes and elites. Now, I'm not disparaging the books by any means, I love them, but they don't have the mass appeal that the games do. Now, of course, games are much more difficult and expensive to make, and I wouldn't expect or want them to do the Star Wars yearly release thing, but the complete absence of alien-focused Halo media is a damn travesty, because I love the aliens of Halo. They don't have the Star Wars problem of oversaturation. Fuck, what is that word? Saturation. They don't have the Star Wars problem of oversaturation. The lore behind them isn't puddle deep like some sci-fi. They fit snugly in the middle. If anything, the Orion Forge series has a lot of alien characters, and Broken Circle, they both prove that the ability is there for the aliens to be the protags of auxiliary media, beyond books even. Like, you're gonna use Halo Bad Blood to tell me that the Grunts have a thriving music industry? You're gonna tell me in a literary medium, with no audio, that the Grunts make music? I want to hear that. Now, I understand being hesitant to do something like that with the track record of Halo spin-off media, but making this non-canon trash, while the entire Halo universe is out there to be explored, should be illegal. It's akin to Disney making Star Wars Legends non-canon for no apparent reason. But the Grunts have gotten the shortest end of the stick of them all. Since they were introduced as sniveling cowards, they have remained as such through the Covenant, Covenant Remnant, and the Banished. I won't lie, 343 has done the Grunts a goddamn service in their glow up from 5 to Infinite. The Banished Grunts look terrific. These guys look better than they ever have, even all the way back. They're more fervent than ever too, because for the first time in their species' history, they've been granted a sliver of respect and autonomy by Atriox and Escharum. Not much, mind you, but much more than the Covenant. But where do the Ungoi go from here? Well, we got a glimpse of Balaho in Halo Bad Blood, the first time a story has actually taken place on the Grunt homeworld. The Ungoi government dissolved soon after the Covenant collapsed. Apparently, too many factions with too much power had widely differing ideas for the society. I mean, as a side note, I'm editing this and I just realized how funny an Ungoi government is. Like, do they have a president, a prime minister? They have a little Grunt in a suit? A human embassy on the planet didn't even do much to help this, even though there were Grunt factions that wanted to ally with the humans. As soon as Cortana broadcast her ultimatum to the galaxy and claimed the mantle for the created, the Ungoi on Balaho surrendered. They were not looking for another fight, least of all one with a fleet of giant Forerunner birds and omnipotent computers. And it worked out for them. Cortana immediately sent her Forerunner ships to the world and ferried in supplies, advanced technologies, and near-limitless resources. They had to ground most of their air and space traffic, but in my opinion, that's a small price to pay for this new benevolent satrapy. The Created built them new agricultural support stations in orbit to feed the planet teeming with starving Ungoi, and the population's need for shelter and medicine were all met soon after. Balaho reopened its ancient factories, and once again, the Ungoi are an independent species well beyond their own industrial revolution. And all of this was relayed to us in a cannon fodder from years ago, so I doubt the lore masters at 343 really remember all that, but I sure hope they do. The Grunts should be allowed to have their time in the sun, and this rambly video hopefully shows why. I don't expect them to come out with a Grunt game anytime soon, or ever, but I think that a little love thrown their way would be well received by the community. Is there anyone out there that doesn't like Grunts? I don't think so. A pipe dream idea I had for a Grunt game is a sort of city-building construction management sim game like Tropico. You build up Balaho and defend it from Banished or Oni spies or Sangheli mercenaries or Jackal pirates or whoever. I don't have a full idea for that, just thoughts. A book where all the characters are Grunts would work. Give us Grunt Broken Circle, or a book that takes place during or after Halo Infinite, but on Balaho. That'd be sick. Or how about a game where the humans help the Ungoi in some way, protecting them from the Endless, even for one mission. That would feed our collective savior complex. But that is all I've got. I sure did ramble in this one, but subscribe if you feel compelled to do so. Next video on the docket is the Epoch class carrier breakdown, so if you're one of the peeps asking for that, you're welcome, and thank you for asking for that. Thank you. You're welcome. Both? Bye-bye.
Where sun and moon and planets roll, and stars that glow from pole to pole.
Interesting song.